The worst thing for most foundations is the constant cycling between the cold and the warm. And a lot of people will put off foundation repair projects into the spring because they think, well, it's concrete, masonry work can't be done in the cold, and it really is something that can actually be a worse situation in the spring. So in the case that we just had recently, there's a few things that you want to do as a homeowner to make sure that you don't have major issues moving forward as you consider a foundation project, and then also repair projects as well. The first thing that we get a lot of phone calls on typically is water that's coming over the top of the foundation. And the reason why this happens is when we get 20 inches of snow or more, like in the case of the latest storm that we had here, a lot of the snow can get drifted up, or when you're snow blowing and shoveling walkways, gets piled up right against the foundation and against the house. And as the melt begins to happen, the snow and the water will start to actually go over the top of the foundation. So we get a lot of photos, a lot of videos from customers where they're saying, I'm getting a lot of water in the basement. I've never had water here before. And when we ask for the photos, a lot of times it's coming at the very tip or top of the foundation wall and it's cascading down to the floor. So the first thing we tell people is make sure you go outside and clear a path between the foundation wall and the house, and at least 1 or 2 feet away from that. So that way any melt water doesn't going over the top of the foundation. And we've talked about in several podcasts earlier about having enough height between the top of the foundation and any sort of garden beds. And so making sure that you have enough relief so that if you do have snow pile up and you can't get to it right away, that there's not going to be water going up and over the top of the foundation. Not only is that water going over the top of the foundation an issue, but it's also going to potentially cause rot and damage to the sill plate, the siding, and any sheathing underneath there. And especially also, potentially insulation that might be up into the joists and rafters there. So that's the first thing you want to do during any snowstorm. Now, a lot of people will delay these projects because, again, it's in the thought process of any sort of concrete work generally doesn't take place in the wintertime. There's special equipment to obviously make that happen, but most times these are spring, summer, fall projects. The problem is that during the winter time, we see the most damage to the foundation itself, because water will get into the foundation cracks or joints or flaws or whatever it might be. And during the freezing and thawing cycles, it actually will expand and contract that joint. So one of the things that we recommend is making sure that that's sealed, because from the early fall into late spring, we're going to have major temperature changes. We're going to go from 70-degree days to 0-degree days, and sometimes it happens over a week or 2 period. And so when we have this constant shifting between freezing and thawing, we get a lot of damage and a lot of additional cracking and additional water infiltration during that period. Now, because of the methods that we use to repair foundations, specifically with concrete and block foundations, the vast majority of the work is being done from the inside. So we're not necessarily concerned about outside temperatures necessarily for us to do the work. Because the foundation on the interior and the basement on the interior is going to be above freezing, typically, hopefully above freezing if you're a homeowner, that way we can actually install or inject the materials into the wall, sealing them from the inside all the way to the outside. So we'll actually displace the water and displace the ice that's in that joint, causing it to seal from the inside out and causing it so that it doesn't actually have water get in there and act like a wedge to open it back up. So these winter cycles can be very, very challenging for the foundation. Another area where they're extremely challenging is during bulkheads. So we see a lot of bulkhead leaking in the transition between fall and winter and spring. And the reason why is that the bulkheads are bolted on with 2 to 4 bolts that actually suck the precast section into the foundation wall. And what happens is depending on how they backfill the hole that they put this in, you are sometimes subject to heaving. And when that bulkhead will heave up and down, it will break down the seal between the foundation and the precast bulkhead. So a lot of times that we see these wild temperature swings between sub-freezing to mild days, not only is it going to cause melt water, but it's also going to cause the soil to soften and stiffen, which causes a rocking motion of the bulkhead. So usually we see bulkheads leak right around this time of year when we're transitioning from a cold snap to a warm spell and then back to a cold snap, because the soils are going to change as well. So something to consider. Most people think the Arctic tundra of winter is a no water environment for your foundation, but it's really not the case. Especially as you go from warm weather into cold weather and back and forth, it can cause a lot of issues. So wintertime is the time to be able to take care of these, so that the springtime, when the rains really start flowing, it's not as big of an issue. So it's certainly something that you want to consider.